There's a lovely terminology in the careers world called the squiggly line. The whole path, the whole journey isn't linear. It's not one direction. Life isn't measured in right answers and successes at all. Life is measured in resilience. Success for me in careers is not if all of those students come out with exam grades. It's if all of those students believe in themselves. We can prepare young people to, open the door to their futures by giving them qualifications and exams. But if we don't teach them the skills to know what to do with those qualifications when they walk through the door, then those opportunities aren't going to open. Success is not the end goal. It's not the top of the mountain. It's in the journey.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of Beyond the Grade. Well, today we thought we'd focus particularly on how we can help prepare children and young people for the next step, for the next phase into their futures beyond school. And in the spirit of Beyond the Grade, how we can equip them with the sort of life skills they will need to thrive and survive in the world of work, in life outside the school gates. And we thought the very best person to speak to is our very own Kelly Guthery, who joined Outcomes First Group in 2000, would you believe? And she's an education quality advisor, and she specialises very much in helping schools, supporting schools to help their students find the right individual pathways into their future careers, wherever they may lie. Having started her own career as an award-winning paediatric nurse, Kelly found a passion for careers guidance whilst campaigning for better relationships between universities and placement providers, particularly within nursing. It's a really interesting area that she worked a lot in, and eminently transferable into her current role. Her experiences led her to meet many education facilities struggling to provide effective guidance and opportunities to young people, especially within special educational needs. She is dedicated to supporting young people to dream big and achieve their aspirations. She's a terrific person to have a conversation with, and I very much hope you enjoy this. Thanks for joining us today, Kelly. I know how busy your schedule is and how much you've got on, so I really appreciate you being here. So just for the benefit of those who don't know the work that you do, can you just start us off by sort of telling us a little bit about yourself and your current role? What does a typical week look like?
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a typical week in education or a typical week in the job, but I do think that's why I enjoy it as much as I do. It's so varied. So it could be that I am working directly with students, so helping them to discover what they're passionate about and what excites them. Or it could be that I'm working with schools more in a compliance sense to give them the building blocks to help them, to help learners. So it's very different every week. It's very different every day, but the two roles work very well together. And we do very well in the organisation to make sure that the building blocks are in there to give those young people the best outcomes.
So what's the job title then? Was it changed?
It changed, yeah. So I am an education quality advisor for careers. Which means that, yes, predominantly I look after the quality of the education that we deliver. But my main qualifications are in careers guidance. So we're always there for the young people so they can speak anytime they want.
And have you always done that? Have you done other things?
No, no. I absolutely fell into careers. And I think anyone that you speak to that's a careers advisor fell into the job. I don't think anyone leaves school and thinks, I'm going to be a careers advisor. That's what I want to do. But we all have experiences as we grow that lead us to think, yeah, that's the role for me. Prior to careers, I was a children's nurse. So I worked in children's intensive care. Wow. And I realised quite quickly that when I graduated, I was told to pick a discipline, just like young people are told to pick a career, a future. Right. But nobody ever explained to me what the different wards meant, what the different units meant. And I think as a newly qualified nurse, intensive care was probably quite a choice. And the impact that had on me made me really want to educate other nurses appropriately in the choices that they made so that they could have a career that they enjoyed rather than one that was quite difficult. So I started off doing a lot of tours around different campuses at university, just supporting students to make the right choice and make the right careers choice in the nursing sense. And then from there I was approached by my former employer and said, look, could you do this with other subjects? Could you do this with more subjects? So the week later I was doing aviation, rail, engineering, and realized actually, yeah, this is where I fit. This is where I belong. So never a conscious choice, but definitely a good one.
But this is definitely where you belong, given what you've done.
Yes, but all linked in a way. Working with young people and delivering care and understanding and listening and making sure that you are there to help them advocate themselves in a nursing sense. Crosses over really, really well into this role and helping them make that choice.
Kelly, do you think schools are doing enough to prepare students for real world work? Where are the gaps, and how perhaps can parents and guardians and carers support? It's a big question, that, isn't it?
It is. And there's a lot of obviously factors that come into play when we talk about it. And I think they are doing a lot. I think they are doing what they can at the moment, but there is definitely gaps and things that we could do better.
Right.
I think if you look outside of education, sometimes the responsibility to opening students up to the wider world does come from our community and comes from the world we live in. And there still is barriers to our learners being able to go into the wider world and gain those life skills. And we expect them to have experience, but we don't always provide the experience for them to be able to develop. So it's really difficult. And I think for parents, thinking back at my childhood, and my mum was a teacher, and she brought me up very much in the mindset of the exam is the end. The exam is what we need to pass. And her questioning of me when I was younger was always very much of, what was your grade? What's your predicted grade? What you expected to get? Whereas now I think parents are a lot better at asking the questions in a better manner. So, what did you do today that you found hard, but you stuck at and you kept going at? You building that resilience. So we're thinking more around what did they do, which was a personal success to them and their growth and development, rather than the end goal of the exams, which always used to be the focus of education.
And do you think, I love that approach of identifying, those small steps, those marginal gains, the personal bests that each of the children make. Do you think if you add those up, they would form a trajectory and a direction to the route that they should take? Because very often, we had a previous episode where the guest was saying that, quoting from Steve Jobs, I think, that the route, joining the dots, it doesn't always become apparent until afterwards and you look back. I'd love to know how we could help them join the dots whilst they're still at school.
Exactly. And I think that's the main thing is there's a lovely terminology in the careers world called the squiggly line. Because it's the whole path, the whole journey isn't linear. It's not one direction. And there is going to be so many squiggly lines in everybody's journey. And the direction that I need to take to get to where I want to be is completely different to the direction that somebody else will need to take to get to where they want to be, dependent on what skills that they need to learn. And I think when we look in terms of a career sense, we can prepare young people to, open the door to their futures by giving them qualifications and exams. But if we don't teach them the skills to know what to do with those qualifications when they walk through the door, then those opportunities aren't going to open. And that's, I do think, where we are really good now in education is looking at that squiggly line and all of those other communication, advocacy skills that these learners need to build to become a resilient person at the other side to get the job, because the job is more than the end result of the exam.
I've often said in schools that it isn't just what you know that counts. It's what you can do with what you know. It's kind of what you just said, really. What you can do with what you know. And that is inextricably linked, I think, to how you feel in schools.
Yeah.
So how do you and your team look at that third element, which is how the students feel about their futures? How do you help students to feel positive about their futures when sometimes they don't?
I think the key, which surprises a lot of people, is that we don't talk about the future a lot of the times.
That's interesting.
And we don't talk about careers. Yeah.
Okay. Pressure, I suppose.
It absolutely is. And our job role is so much more than talking about careers. It's so much more than talking about the future. And the future to anybody is scary. The future to somebody who only knows the tiniest factor of the world and is expected to make a decision on what they want for the rest of their lives.
Daunting, isn't
it's impossible. And there isn't this notion that we used to have. And there's one question that I've always disliked in the careers world, which still appears, which is where do you want to be in 10 years' time? Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Whereas most students don't know where they see themselves now and who they are
now
today. And it's more important to focus on them learning who they are and what they want and what they like. And picking a career, picking a future, especially when they don't have exposure to the outside world, isn't about them knowing. The way that we look at it as a team is we're trying to find those things they talk about voluntarily, those things they keep coming back to that they like, that they're interested in, those things they don't even realize that they talk about every week. And we build up their confidence based on the things that they enjoy and they're passionate about, rather than trying to think ahead into how that's going to equate to a career.
That's a lovely way of putting it.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, the jobs and the careers and the opportunities that will be there when they finish from year 10 to year 11 is probably vastly different. So we can focus on the end job at a later date, but we're just preparing them to go into anything that they dream to do.
So how do they figure out, what they're good at, where their element lies, if they don't have much opportunity for work experience and seeing what's out there? How do you simulate that in a school?
It's still, in every school that I speak to, it's the most challenging aspect. And it's definitely something that is not a new problem. No. It has been around for a number of years. It is the basis of how I almost began doing what I do now. I worked on an initiative that we created in my hometown called Project Repair, which was to repair the relationships between employers and educational providers so that we actually could offer the future workforce key skills, and teaching the existing workforce that it is so valuable for them to share their knowledge and wisdom to help kind of shape the future of employment.
I agree.
But still, 10, 11 years down the line, we struggle to get young people opportunities to explore. And a lot of people you speak to don't learn from textbook or learn from somebody talking about their role. They learn from doing. They learn from experiencing and discovering what they enjoy. But it's very much what we just spoke about at the moment for a lot of learners, is really helping them to dig deep into what they enjoy, what they find passion in, what ignites kind of that excitement in them, and then helping them to see the wider world around it as to where that could lead. And focus in on those kind of core skills that will help them then go into any of those job pathways in the future, if they've got the bulk of skills to be able to kind of transition with on top of their exam grades.
Do you think that to that extent, I hesitate to use the word careers education now, because I know you don't often talk about careers, but to that extent, do you think careers education, that provision, has improved in the last 10, 20 years?
I think
Is it going in the right direction?
It's going in the right direction. I think in terms of guidance, if I look at the model of where I work now, we don't follow the typical model. So if you look at the requirements for careers guidance and education, they need to have one conversation with somebody like me before they leave school, just one. And that one conversation, they're meant to discover who they are and what they want.
What's a minimum requirement? Is it?
That's the government that's the guidance, is one. Whereas we meet with the students a minimum of once a year, plus any additional times that they want, because you can't make a decision about your future in a snapshot. It needs to be more. But I think there's definitely more of us out there than there ever used to be, professional, passionate advisors who really want to kind of open up the world to young people.
So could you cite some just brief examples of really good practice where you've seen it's really effective, the support that's given to those sort of, perhaps key stage 4, key stage 5 students?
Yeah.
Where they're on the brink of making options, making decisions. Where have you seen it where it's gone well?
The key for us, and I think that thinking about learners dreaming big starts beyond that. We need to do this in nursery. We need to do this in infants. We need to...
See, straight away, I just jumped to key stage 5 then.
Exactly. And this is where most careers advice is started in kind of key stage 4, key stage 5. But we need to get young people dreaming big and thinking about what they could be and what the future could hold for them at a very early age.
Very good.
And getting them to really believe that they can be what they want to be and kind of grow to be what they want to be. And I think it's never too young and never too old to start. And we've had some really lovely journeys and success stories with learners who have come to us without confidence, who have had failures in kind of other walks of their life and don't have that belief in themselves that they can be successful. And then to see them, and we're not talking overnight successes. I've had learners who I'm communicating with who first had a meeting with me 7-8 years ago plus.
And they're still in touch.
Oh, absolutely. And it's, the best part of the job. And I have a good handful of learners who, my oldest one being kind of almost 10 years since we first met, who still feeds in about how that journey has come for them. And it's about being honest with them that sometimes the journey is going to be that squiggly line and it is going to be long and there's not going to be a quick fix or a magic answer, but we can teach them the skills and help them to build that strength to follow the wiggly path to get where they want to be at the end. And the success, it's a different world. And I think educators don't realize sometimes the impact that they have on other people's lives. And even if they're not guidance professionals and they're not there in that realm, it's amazing to see how I've spoken to people who have got where they are now because of something a teacher said or something,
without a doubt,
a support person said.
Very best examples for me, certainly when I was a child a million years ago, of the teachers that I connected with were the ones who, at least gave the impression, even if it wasn't genuine, they gave the impression they were pleased to see me. Yeah. They were always really pleased to see me. And then the others who believed in me. Yeah. They projected unshakable belief in my potential, even when I didn't feel it, And I suppose that's part of what you do, isn't it? It's what your team does. But it's exhausting. It must be very tiring. It's projecting that belief all the time.
Never exhausting. It's exciting. It's the challenge. It's it's never about the end goal when we start the journey either. There's never a time scale on it. And I think that, so we always say to students that we are there for as long as they need us. And that might be one session. It might be 5 years. It might be 10 years. Because I can say as an adult that there's multiple times in my life where I've sat in a job and thought, this is not where I'm meant to be, but how do I go to the next space? Yeah. Where do I get that advice from? And I think we are a service that's needed throughout the life journey. And it's lovely to to see those learners that we started off a journey with multiple years ago that are still coming back for that guidance and that advice.
I'm thinking of getting married. What do you think, Kelly?
Any walk
What
of
about
life.
a mortgage? How do I do that?
Well, it's those kind of things that I think we definitely need to do a lot of more work around life skills.
I think a lot of young people feel pressure to have it all figured out, you know?
Yeah.
What would you say to them, you know, right now, as they may be approaching the end of their compulsory education perhaps, and they're worried that they haven't got it all figured out? What might you say to those sort of students?
I'm really proud of the people that don't.
Right.
Really, really proud
they may
of the
have
people
the most
that
exciting
don't.
careers ahead.
Exactly. And I think when you are 15, 16 years old, you know the tiniest portion of what the world has to offer. And I think if you think at that age that you know what you want for the rest of your life, it closes you off from so many opportunities and so many things that you didn't know existed. And I think as long as you are willing to grow with your life and then the next step, I think it's great if you don't have it figured out. You just need to know how to take the next step in front of you and discover it. And you can decide, like me, when I'm in my late 30s, that I want to be a careers advisor, and that's where I belong. And, you know, all my journey up until then wasn't a wasted journey or a negative journey. It was all steps onto the road of getting me where that I want to be now and where I ultimately am.
So what do you say to students when they say, or you or your colleagues, your team, what do you say when students would say to you, you know, why am I learning calculus, trigonometry? Why am I learning adverbial phrases? Why am I learning about mountain scree? Why am I doing that? Why does it matter? What do you say to that?
It's difficult. It is difficult. And I think going back to education, there's a lot more awareness now to the whys. There is a lot more focus on cross-curricular links to the why, so that students understand why they are learning, why they are doing things.
Purpose.
I was very much like that with maths. I always say you have a maths brain or an English brain, and mine definitely was never a maths brain. It was my biggest challenge throughout my education, and I never understood why I needed to do it. I could count my money, I could buy things in shops. That was kind of the end of the journey in terms of my sense of exactly, of why I need it. And then, you know, in life we do use calculators a lot, but then I'm grateful when I look 7-8 years later, when I went to university as a mature student and decided to be a nurse and had to sit a series of very comprehensive maths exams, that information that I thought I would never use when I was 15, 16 years old actually allowed me to enter a new role and a new kind of pathway in life. It's this kind of conversation again, that it's not always about the now. It's kind of building up your package of skills that you can take with you for the next journey. And the next step.
For years when I was running schools, we used to set up something called, I think you'd have liked this actually, something called the Inspiring Speakers Programme. Every school does this. We're reinventing the wheel here, where we managed to, you know, persuade press gang parents to come in. And it wasn't just parents who were doing interesting jobs. It was parents and carers who were out there in the world of work beyond the school gates to come in and talk to the students. Yeah. Do we do that sort of stuff? How do you...
We do. And I think that the biggest thing that we like to encourage is not so much parents, it's the own schools alumni. It's getting people who've walked the path.
Right. They're the role models.
They have been there, they've been in those four walls, they've done those same lessons, they've had those same tutors, and look where they are, and look what they've done, and they've achieved, and they've had that success. And you can never have too many speakers for young people, I don't think, or for the speakers. I've met multiple speakers that have come to an event who've then thought, I could do that. I could do that job. I could go on and do that.
One of the best examples I've ever seen in our school, visiting our schools, was just before Christmas when I was at one of our Blenheim schools, actually. Like you, I'm lucky enough to get to visit lots of different schools.
Yeah.
And they had a beautiful display. And it was of their alumni, And they had their picture of each person had a picture of themselves in the school uniform, and then a picture of them as an adult, because there was a huge gap between them. So they'd had alumni that they'd tracked for a long, long time, and they took a photo of them in their adulthood, put it next to their photo of them, and then there was a doctor. Clearly a doctor, they had a stethoscope and so forth. There was somebody who was on a tractor. They were doing some sort of landscape management and so forth. There was a pilot, and she was a pilot. And then there was a picture of her as a student at that school. Have you seen that sort of stuff before? I think we should do that everywhere.
Yeah, we do. And we do it a lot with staff as well. Right. And I love the reaction of students when you do it with a staff member, because they see them as the teacher. They see them as that one person. But actually, when you get a member of staff to plot their career journey and show where they started and all of the jobs that they've had that have led them there, it really helps learners to see them as people, to be able to kind of realize that there is a journey behind it and they've not kind of come in at the end. But it's lovely with alumni we had this recently in one of our schools with a learner who is now married, has children, lives abroad, works abroad, has made a very successful life for himself over there. And getting him to come back and not only demonstrating educationally and, within a job what he's succeeded in, but actually literally opening the world to students to show them that they can go beyond the country they live in and work elsewhere was so inspirational to watch the reactions and how much they were feeding in. And then that reflected when we interviewed them next. They now want us to look at careers in other countries and other parts of the world because they believe that they can do that.
And they can see it. You can't believe if you can't see it. Back in the day, years ago, I remember I used to play Age of Empires.
Yeah.
That sort of platform game. And you used to send out a scout on a horse to go and explore the land. And as he explored it on his horse, so the light would then come up, wouldn't it? It's in the shadows, and then you start to reveal the light. That's exactly what the alumni are doing for those kids, isn't it? They're exploring the map and revealing routes, hidden routes up until then, that you could actually take.
Yeah.
That's why the alumni are so powerful, aren't they?
And I think I love that. It's asking those learners to, when you say sometimes, come and look at what your parents do or what a successful member of society is doing, they sometimes can't relate that back to themselves.
It's a long way over there, isn't it?
Yeah, and their journey and where they've come from. And I think seeing a person who's had the same challenges and the same background and the same upbringing that they have had, and who they can speak to and realize that, they struggled with maths or they struggled with certain subjects and they didn't have opportunities, then makes them realize that there is more to this current situation that they're in, and actually there's no reason they can't go on to be as successful as they want to be.
It's the limits we place on ourselves, really. A big theme of this podcast then, Kelly, as you'll know, is how we prepare pupils for the experiences and responsibilities of later life.
Yeah.
Beyond the grade. From what you've seen and experienced, what for you are the most important skills that young people should be developing before they leave school, at the point when they leave school?
Yeah.
What would you like to see them focus on?
I think, we do go back to the key skills or the core skills all the time. And there's so much terminology coming in. We've got the green core skills now because the world's, green skills, because the world's more kind of environmental and job roles are going that way. Yeah. And I think when you talk to any student around kind of transferable skills and things that they're going to use in later life, again, it can seem like they need to have all those figured out now and they need to be really good at it. And when we talk about communication skills, students will say, well, I'm not standing up and giving a presentation and I'm quiet, I'm not the loudest in the room. And I think it's getting learners to understand that's not what it's about. Communication obviously is so important when they're going into the wider world and into jobs, but that doesn't mean that you've got to be the loudest in the room or the most confident in the room. That means for us that we are helping you to advocate for yourself, to speak up when you need something, to speak up when something isn't right, to be able to be safe. When we're looking at resilience, we are looking at helping those learners to understand that if it doesn't go right the first time, but they don't give up and they go back and they try again, or they turn up to a lesson or a subject that they don't particularly enjoy and they try, that is them building their resilience. And when they realize that they are succeeding at these skills and they're building these skills every day, their confidence grows.
Very good.
And once their confidence grows,
realize that.
Exactly. Yeah. It is, we do in anybody's mind when we're asked to say how good we are at a skill, we jump to the end of the spectrum and think, well,
I'm not there.
I'm not there. So therefore I'm not good at that skill. Whereas actually they are incredibly good at that skill, and they're incredibly good in their own way of expressing how they utilize that skill. They just don't know it and it's showing them it.
So what's a good day look like for you? What would need to happen during the day for you to get home and say that was a good one, that went well?
I think, when, not just with students, but when we help schools to realize how good they are as well,
right?
That really,
that's empowering, isn't it?
Yeah, that really is a good day. And I think, the phrase that always comes up in conversations with me is, comparison is the thief of joy. It absolutely is.
It is.
And it is with learners when they're comparing themselves to their peers and the other people in the class. It is with educators when they're thinking, well, that school does this and I don't have this and I can't do this. That they can spend so long thinking about what other people do and not realizing how good they are. And
Always.
I think a good day for me, and I'm auditing at the minute, so I audit all of our schools.
Oh, right. What do you audit for?
So I have a list of things that really would benefit the learners if schools offered, really would enhance the journey, but also would really enhance the environment of where they're working as well. So we have a really good structure in the company where we give them good examples of how they could really kind of excel in terms of impact. And then twice a year, I audit them and see how they're doing with it. And the nicest, I had a new school that's new to the group who messaged me beforehand and said, I don't think it's going to be that good. I don't think I've done that much. I don't think I'm doing enough. I didn't respond. I just thought, I'm going to audit. I'm just going to see for myself. I'm going to audit you. And I sent her the feedback back. And she messaged me and said, this is why this process really works, because I believe I can do it now. I believe. And she hadn't realized all of the things that she was doing and had done and the impact that she was having because she was comparing herself to a school that's been established for many years and is further down the journey.
Which is exactly what the children do themselves.
Which is exactly what the children do. And I think on both sides of that coin, it's lovely going in with the learners and coming out of the room and actually seeing that belief that they have in themselves and helping them to realize. And it might not be that I've come out with, I might go in with the intention of helping them decide where they're going for year 12 and still come out and they don't know where they're going for year 12. But if they've come out with that little bit more belief that it's possible and they can transition,
very good,
then that is a measure of success. And I think, within education, this is what my team are very, very focused on, is helping schools to change their thought process on what success looks like and how we measure success, because there's so many, with all these little audits we do and little bits and pieces that we do, and people think, why do you do that? Because we are helping them see success in a different way and measure their success in a different way. That success for me in careers is not if all of those students come out with exam grades and all of those students get accepted into college. It's if all of those students believe in themselves and are confident in their future and are ready to take the next step, then that's success.
I agree, for me. Actually. That's a much more solid start, isn't it? That's the firing up the boosters, isn't it? To go. That's what you need. Yeah. That's what you need, really.
Absolutely.
And hopefully that would avoid the situation that I'm sure we've both often seen, where students who follow the traditional path of getting their academic grades and securing a place at university, whether they wish to go, whether they know what they want to study or not, they feel that's the path. And then invariably they might have a wobble in the first semester, actually. Do you know what I mean? Because they haven't equipped themselves with the other skills that you need to be self-sufficient and to thrive and survive. And
it is, I have done careers guidance within several different settings. And one setting was a university that was very academic, very grades and outcomes delivered. And I almost didn't get satisfaction out of those careers interviews because they came in and they knew what they were going to do, and they knew what the path was, and they knew how to get there, and they they had the grades and the links and everything like that. But sometimes even having everything planned out doesn't mean it's the right journey when you get there. And because they haven't built those core skills around it, success is not in the end goal. It's not in the top of the mountain. It's in the journey. And then if the top of the mountain never comes, then are you able to take a different path and go down a different journey? And sometimes I think it's more difficult for people who think they've got it worked out, because if it doesn't go that way,
they might get a jolt.
They've got to kind of rethink and restart again.
So a few quick fire questions at the end, if that's okay.
Yeah.
This will be interesting. So when you were 10 years old then, Kelly, what did you want to be when you were growing up? Do you know?
I wanted to be a dolphin trainer. I
wasn't expecting that.
I had two different jobs. I mean, Outcomes First almost lost me a few years ago because I am obsessed with penguins and marine life biology. Wow. And a job came up at London Zoo for a penguin handler. And I thought, well, that's it.
I wasn't expecting that. You could advise the penguins about the careers?
I absolutely could. And I think, and this is the thing with...
I wasn't expecting that.
Thinking back to when I was 10, we didn't have careers guidance. We didn't have anybody that came in. And 10-year-old me was sitting there with a bedroom plastered in dolphins, wanting to, save the whales and work within that field. Yeah. And my school got me to do a skills quiz. And the skills quiz said that I should be a teacher or a plumber.
Right. Not a dolphin
trainer. A teacher or a plumber. And that was it. A teacher or a plumber. And my family, I've come from a line of teachers, and
plumbers?
Not so much plumbers. Didn't really know a lot about that. And my teacher turned around and said, well, you'd make a good teacher, so let's focus on the skills for that. And there was never a conversation about what I wanted or what I felt. And I grew up until, it's really embarrassing to say almost, but till about 5 years ago, thinking that I would need to go to a tropical climate to work with dolphins and to, be able to do that role. And then I moved to a place called Blythe a few years ago and lived right next to the beach, where there is a marine college where they go out on boats every day and they track dolphins and they do conservation work. And they thought, if 10-year-old me knew that was out there, then
we didn't know it was out there.
I could have been.
You'd have to go somewhere tropical.
I thought I'd only ever seen it when I'd been on holidays and they had kind of these parks and things that you can visit. But I didn't realize that, obviously naively, marine life does exist over here, and I could look after it.
Well, we won't talk about it very much, really.
No, and
it's not too late.
It's not too too late. I spend a lot of my free time on penguin camp watching the Edinburgh Zoo penguins and watching their lives. Yeah, I do think maybe a retirement project, part of me will go out and do a bit of conservation with some penguins.
I can just see it. So, if you could give your teenage self one piece of advice now, looking back, what would you say to teenage Kelly?
I think the key thing I would give myself is just the one phrase that it doesn't define you. I think
what doesn't define you?
I was a very academic student.
Right.
I really enjoyed school, but I was no good at maths. And I was in a peer group of straight A star students, straight A students. Right. And I still am almost haunted by that day I picked up the brown envelope and opened it and didn't pass my maths. And the success of everything else fell out the way because I thought I was never going to achieve anything because I wasn't
just
successful.
Everything else, all your other achievements.
That's all I could focus on, was that I wouldn't have a future without that. I wouldn't be able to get where I am without that. And I wish I could.
Wow.
I wish I could show myself back then where I am now, and the success in the journey. And actually, I have friends who still I'm in touch with who are the straight A students who haven't had the success that they wanted to have.
Yeah.
And it hasn't defined my future at all.
No, not at all.
By it. And I wish I could have enjoyed that moment of the success that I did have rather than worrying more about that one area that I didn't.
So what's one lesson? Are there any lessons from school that you still use today, whether it's a knowledge or a skill or some level of understanding that you still use?
I think the biggest thing that my school taught me was, and it was very much the way that I run the team that I have at the moment, is how to work in a group but exist as an individual. And I think that's
a good one.
The biggest message that I had, and I say to young people all the time now, that working with others, working with teams, being able to kind of collaboratively work is such an important skill, but it's so important also to keep your individuality and to always remember who you are and what you believe in and what you want, so that you never kind of lose sight of your own journey, because it's so easy to become a part of a wider journey and other people's journeys that sometimes you forget what yours was in the first place.
So true. Well, we are so lucky to have you on our team.
Thank you.
And we want you to continue being you. My goodness. And yes, pursue your love of penguins and dolphins.
Absolutely.
But not just yet. Yeah.
Not just yet.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.